are the Joey Lavelle. That is Briggs Mac. Welcome to the Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. We appreciate the love. We will have 5 headlines, which includes a little bit of day-to-day college basketball action, a little bit of an Olympics update, along with men's Olympics, and a couple of interesting takes from Briggs. And are the Winter Olympics rigged? We're going to get into that along with Trinidad Chambliss getting his eligibility for next year. Now, there are some conflicting, there's some conflicting parties here considering the judge is an Ole Miss grad, and a little bit of wild headlines coming out of this with one of the coaches saying something to the effect of I'm paraphrasing this, but baby mamas of players, he tells the partners that the players have to sleep during the season. I forget what the coach's name was. I think it was Joe something. But players need to sleep in the other room because they need to be locked in on football. She should have to take care of the baby, which was a dumb thing to say. That's a dumb thing to say. But for the overall eligibility ruling, I wanted to see Trinidad Chambliss play another year. Don't get me wrong. He is a great talent, and he very much entertained us in the playoffs last year. It was an awesome performance. But with the Charles Bediako preliminary injunction ruling coming down, and now with Trinidad Chambliss getting ruled eligible, I think it sets a bad precedent for these court cases these judges to be like, well, there's precedent here. Why would I go against precedent? It makes it that much harder on the NCAA for a burden of proof. And the NCAA has done themselves wrong in their own right because they keep granting eligibility to players to play their ninth freaking year, like you saw in that story of a Montana player. I understand injuries suck, but at some point we got to put the hammer down and say, why are we keep giving players eligibility? Like, if you get hurt, I'm sorry, you're not going to the league anyway. You're not owed the right to play college football. And so we're sitting here and keep giving guys eligibility, and Trinidad throwing his former coach at Ferris State under the bus. It's just, I think it's a really bad look, and this makes the burden of proof for the NCAA 10 times harder than it would have been 24 hours ago. Your thoughts, Briggs?
Um, do you think this is going to lead to Diego Pavia suing the NCAA for another year?
Everyone that wanted another year, like Joey Aguilar, Diego Pavia, all of them I think they already got another year, if I'm not mistaken. I think the JUCO players already got another year, if I'm not mistaken. But this is bad for the sport because now, like, I know the Bediako case and the Trinidad Chambliss case they're kind of different in nature, but eligibility rulings, the NCAA's already blown, and now you're going to have a court precedent set, which is going to make it 10 times harder for the NCAA to go through court. And it's going to get it's already at the point, but it's going to get to where the NCAA needs Congress to do something, or they're just going to keep losing court case after court case after court case after court case.
So Pavia is declared for the draft and is signed with representation, so I think he's saying that his college time is done. Unless he wants to pull a Bediako, go find out, oh, hey, there's nothing in the draft for me, and go back to Vanderbilt for another year. Aguilar is in the
What's saying they
process.
won't? What's saying they
Nothing.
won't?
And this is something
And
I know we've talked about plenty, is there needs to be more structure. There's no structure to it right now at all, and it's just the Wild West.
well, what is saying that an NFL player can't do that? Or a guy that declares for the draft, goes undrafted, It's like, I don't want to test the free agent undrafted market. I'll just go back to Vanderbilt. What's stopping them? And like, in
Nothing.
there's literally nothing, like, transfer portal in the spring. There's nothing stopping you from not going and transferring in the summer. There's not a thing stopping you. There's these so-called transfer portal windows, but someone's gonna get tampered with. Someone's gonna go to another school, and the schools aren't gonna say no to having them, especially if that school needs a whole field in their roster. No one's gonna say no, and it's gonna happen once, and then the floodgates are gonna open. And I think that it's really, like, the NCAA really needs Congress to do something because they've already worked themselves into this bind, and they just can't get out of it now.
I mean, this isn't even just a football issue either. We've seen this span to um, basketball, and how long does it take before we see it in baseball?
Baseball's coming. Me and Dylan talked about that on Wednesday, where it's going to spread to every sport. Where it's going to spread to hockey, it's going to spread to, and I think these leagues will really, once their talent pool starts getting messed with. In the NBA, it's not as much of a big deal because it's a very stars-based league anyway. But when the NFL, the MLB, the NHL, where it's such a wider group of, like, a bigger talent pool, it's going, like, these leagues will get involved in it. And yes, the NHL and MLB not as much, but they're really going to get annoyed when their talent pool starts getting tampered with, specifically in the NFL, because now you don't have that undrafted guy to go fill a practice squad spot. And so I think it's going to continue to get harder and harder. And eventually it's going to get to the point where the leagues are going to take a role into hopefully pulling the sport out of the hole that it dug itself in.
It'll be very interesting to see kind of how this plays out, and at what point do we see some sort of governing body step in? Because we've like the NC, this is, I feel like it's gotten too big for the NCAA to kind of say something and be like, okay, now we're going to put our foot down, because they're just getting walked over in court. And I think part of it, we've talked about it, because I think the judge that granted the restraining order for Bediako to play for Alabama was a Crimson Tide graduate. The judge we just talked about earlier granting Chambliss the injunction, or the ruling allowing him to play, I believe you mentioned he was
It
an Ole
was an
Miss graduate.
injunction.
So now we're seeing it to the point where it's like, okay, these judges have connections to these. I'm not going to say that they actively or like colluding with the school, but it's like, hey, I went to Ole Miss, or we're going to say that XYZ South Carolina player is looking for his 8th year, and I'm a judge, and I graduate from South Carolina. Then I'm like, oh, hey, I want to see my football team succeed. I'm going to grant them an extra year so our star player gets another year. Like, there's like conflicted interest there, and I think that there needs to be some sort of structure coming in from some form of government to say that, hey, this is enough. Because now we're seeing every spot that these guys that are taking 8th, 9th, 7th years, that's a spot that a high schooler's not going to get. That's a spot that a second or third stringer isn't going to be able to fill. So it's kind of pushing it down the line.
Well, we talked about this on the College Football is in Shambles episode, and that the transfer portals really became a disaster for these high school kids, where they're not able to get these spots, or they're having to move down. Like, these guys that would be playing in the MAC, now they have to move down to FCS, where they're not going to get looked at as hard. And transfer portal's a great thing for guys like Trinidad Chambliss, but it's also really hurting the high school kid, and development is not as pushed now because all these coaches are just trying to keep their jobs. Like, and I think it's part of the mentality of, well, it's a what have you done for me lately world. Like, that's just the world we live in. And it's the mentality of the players do not care. So why should I as a coach? Because I'm having to go sign new guys to new contracts every year. Like you would not have had a GM in college football, you would say 5 years ago. Now every college football program has a general manager because roster construction is just too hard now. It's really just it's way harder than it used to be. Like Nick Saban and his roster management would never have been able to do what he did in this day and age in college football when it comes to a roster management standpoint. It just would never have happened. And you'll never see, I don't think you'll ever see a dynasty again. And it's taking out from the sport what we all once loved from it, and it's just getting worse without any form of things that we can cling on to and attach to love again, like we do the NFL. Anything else?
I wrapped it up.
Moving into the 5 headlines, we're going to be a little more day-to-day on college basketball and these other sports now, considering there's football. There's not as much to talk about. So we will move to an upset that happened on Monday. Kansas upset undefeated Arizona with Darren Peterson out. And so before this game, I know we were kind of talking, or I sent the news to y'all that Darren Peterson was not playing because of a flu. He was in the warm-up with the team and decided right before the game that he couldn't play. I think it was like 15 minutes out from the game. And so Dylan and I kind of talked about this on Wednesday. The load management thing in basketball as a whole at this point is kind of just ridiculous. Like me personally, you and I have had flu games, and I agree, nowhere near on the same level. But personally, if I'm in that position, if I'm not dying, I'm playing. Like that's just how it is. And the fact that it was a flu, he was good enough to go warm up, but decided he couldn't play. It's really not good for college basketball because you used to be fighting for that opportunity to get to the NBA. You just played for the love of the game and the love of your teammates because 95% of you aren't going to the NBA anyway. So, nevertheless, Kansas ended up upsetting Arizona to hand them their first loss. And Kansas now has its 8th win in a row. It's their 4th top 25 win. And watching Flory Badunga and Rivas going at it, that was awesome. And that was a great matchup all night. The battles for the rebounds, like the battle in the paint. It was just awesome. Free throws were a huge thing. Kansas was 21 of 25. Arizona was 8 of 14. And now you move to where Arizona, the stage in college basketball now, where Arizona is not going to be the number 1 team, which they have been forever. It's likely going to go to the Wolverines. And so now Kansas plays another top 5 opponent in Iowa State, and Arizona has a ranked matchup against Texas Tech on Saturday. So you're really getting into this where Kansas likely not going to get a number 1 seed, but Arizona has the opportunity to get pushed out from number 1 seed if they drop a couple more games. So it was an awesome game. And Briggs, if you have any thoughts.
I know that you've touched on this, and we've talked at length about this. I think you know what I'm about to say. We've talked at length about this outside of the podcast and even a little bit on it. But I think this is one of the downsides to paying players is I don't necessarily know if there's that much of a drive anymore. And I don't want to say that there's not a drive. Actually, I'm going to recant that. I think there's a culture issue in certain sports. You look at, I'm not going to say football, because football, you don't really see this. football and hockey, that like the two sports that have like the most physical, grinding kind of beat yourself up kind of mentality to it. You see those guys go and play through kind of anything that they can, and it will take them literally not being able to walk or function to get them off the field or the ice. And then you see basketball, it's like, oh, the flu. And we've seen instances, Zdeno Chara playing in the Stanley Cup final with his jaw wired shut. Who was it 2 years ago playing with a torn rotator cuff in the
I think
broken
that's Matthew
hand?
Tkachuk.
We've had guys play with Ovechkin coming back a month after shattering his lower leg. I don't understand the just complete difference. And then you have people on ESPN go out and say that the longevity of LeBron's career is something similar or on the same level of Ovechkin's. And yet Ovechkin's missed like 30 something games in his just shy of he's 23 20
I think
seasons
it's
now. I think he was drafted in 2006.
21. I think it's 20. It's 21st.
It's whatever. To miss 31 games in that span is insane. And yet we've seen LeBron miss 30 in like the last 3 years.
It's probably more than that, dude.
So
He's probably
at
missed
least
almost 20 this season.
But I think we look at it and it's like once these guys in college don't have to necessarily go out. I mean, this Darren Peterson's probably going to be a very high first round pick. I mean, he doesn't have to worry about it anymore. But if I'm a GM, I'm sitting here like, oh, if a flu's going to take you, how do I know, like, if when we need you on a night-to-night basis late in the season to go out and win and get into the playoffs, how do I know that I can count on you then?
Yeah, and my thing is like, you warmed up. He was in warm-ups. That's the thing that shocked me about it is like he warmed up and then decided not to go. Like even
Like,
if you're limited to like 10 minutes, like even if you're limited to 10 minutes, I feel like that would be the right thing. I mean, it's incredibly impressive from Bill Self's team that Kansas was still able to win this game against a team that no one could solve between Brigham Young and Iowa State and a couple of these other Big 12 teams. But it's just crazy to me. Like the difference in culture. Like you even have Lindsey Vonn skiing on a torn ACL. You have Will Campbell playing on a torn MCL. It's just the culture differences is so wild. Drake May knew he was going to get killed in the Super Bowl and still had a really bad shoulder. Like, you had to have known you were going to get killed in the Super Bowl. It's like the culture differences in the sports. It boggles the mind. And like you and I talked about this, LeBron, Luka, and Austin Reeves sitting out against the Spurs. Like that's crazy to me. Because if I'm a Spurs fan, I'm like, hey, I'll go to that game. I get to see LeBron play, get to see Luka play, and Wemby play, and a couple of the other stars in that game. And oh yeah, the Lakers didn't play anyone, but we got to see Wemby drop 40 in like 20 minutes. That was cool. Like, it's crazy. It just bothers me with basketball, and you didn't see this purging into college basketball until recently. And I trust that Darren Peterson really judged and was like, I really can't play or I'm gonna like. We didn't watch warm-ups. We didn't see how he's moving. But you played at home, but you went to the arena and you warmed up and decided you couldn't go. It's just crazy to me.
Yeah, I think another thing that kind of irks me about this is I completely understand if it's like a physical injury and it's like, oh, you have like a severely sprained ankle or you're like something is physically wrong with you. Like some sort of physical, actual like injury limitation. You go out there in warm-ups and you're like, dude, this craft's just not working. Like for whatever reason, I can't jump right off my left foot whatever. But to go through warm-ups and then just be like, I've got the flu.
Yeah. So, anyways, kind of speaking of people in close contact, UNC beats Duke, storms the court twice, then lost to Miami a couple days later. So we'll start with the Duke thing, and then we'll move into the Miami thing, what that means for future. They beat Duke off of hopes and prayers to God. Only led for 0.2 seconds. Ironically, 0.2 seconds is when UNC stormed the court the first time. The UNC fans just beat the crap out of the Duke staff. And it's kind of, I mean, if I'm Duke players, I'm probably beating the crap out of the refs, considering you only called one foul on UNC in the second half. Like I said, some prayers were answered in that game. And then your players talk trash in the post game, and then you just go get kind of dominated by Miami. It was close for most of the game, but you never led in the game. So you get kind of embarrassed and outclassed by Miami. And then now you have Caleb Wilson, who just suffered a left hand fracture. So you just kind of sold your soul to the devil to beat Duke, to be honest, if you're asking me. Because now you're without your star player. You just beat to a team that was fighting for to get into the tournament and now really bolstered their resume. And I can't help but laugh. And my thing is, like, act like you've been there before. Like, UNC is a blue blood. That was like if Ohio State fans storm the field for beating the Wolverines this year, there will be problems, like, with me, with the program, and the school in general. Because why are we storming the field because going into the season, we are going to be a better team than them. We're going to be ranked higher as Ohio State. So crazy things can happen this season. They could be ranked higher than Ohio State. Talking about the Wolverines. But, like, act like you've been there before. Why are you throwing water bottles at Duke players if you're the fans? Like, I get you're a college kid and, like, you enjoy the party and all that type of stuff, but why are we acting like this? I feel like court storming used to be like a fun thing and like field storming, and now it's gotten so much more dangerous for the players, in my opinion, Briggs.
As someone who has stormed a field/court 3 times in my 4 years here at Carolina, and absolutely memories that I will cherish for the rest of my life, I think you look back at UNC and you talk about act like you've been there before. They used to be a classy program under Roy Williams. Like they like the whole I guess aura around it. Not to brain rot ourselves here, but like the program itself, like just the midst among it, like you know what? Do you understand what I'm saying though? Like there's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
sense of professionalism there, and like I just feel like and with the paying of players now, I feel like that sense of professionalism has gone away. And so we've seen it almost come to the point where it's like it's becoming a professional sport, but we've lost the ability for the professionalism to be present. Like there's no way to control the players. There's no way to control the fans. There have been instances where players and fans, like they've taken it too far during court stormings. Like that's supposed to be a fun, unique experience that you maybe get to experience once. There'll be kids that won't ever get to experience it. Like Alabama should never be one of those schools, at least in the near future, that gets to storm a field. Because you're Alabama. You are the top of the top. UNC, I guess they've been kind of down bad the past 2 to 3 years, but they're one of those teams. It's like you look up in the rafters, how many national championship banners do you have up there? Because if I'm not mistaken, there's a handful of them. The same thing with Duke. Like you go to those places and you go to a basketball game the same way you go, and you're never going to see a court storm or a ice storming in hockey, really. Like if you went to like Minnesota Duluth or some of these like primo NCAA ice hockey programs, you're not gonna go there and expect like, oh hey, we're gonna storm the ice because we're bad one year and we upset the number one team. And be like, no, there's a standard that we have set previously, and we expect to live up to the standard each and every year.
Storming the ice is that would be absolute mayhem. That would be absolute mayhem.
Now, I do have a brilliant idea. Let the hockey teams, whether it's club, D1 for the northern schools, let them run security for basketball courts if you want to stop court stormings.
You could let football players do it. Just let the opposing team's football players out there.
Well, do you know how much money people have invested in these football programs now? Like it's like $20 million. They're not going to want to put $20 million worth of security out there. You got what? A couple $100,000 in your hockey team, maybe.
If that, yeah. I mean, yeah, but ice storming would be wild. But like I said, what goes around comes around. You talk all that trash against Duke, and now you lose to Miami, and now Caleb Wilson suffered a left hand fracture. Not a good situation to be in. So, captains for the Olympic teams have been announced, and group play has started. Briggs, I'll let you take it away on the captains.
I got a question for you. Outside of personal statistics and awards, what has Austin Matthews done?
So, what has Austin Matthews' team done? I know where you're getting at.
Because when the moment has shined the brightest and like his number's been called, he shivers away and does not lead. I don't understand this call from USA Hockey and the coaching staff to make Austin Matthews the captain. If I'm being completely honest, I thought they were better names than him to even be on the team.
That's insane.
He's a star, yes, but look at what he did during the four. He had 3 assists during the Four Nations. Didn't have a goal. Wasn't really a marquee player.
Well, he also left the best player in the world wide open in overtime. I don't know if you remember that, but yeah.
Hey, we wouldn't have to hear shit from Canada for a year if it wasn't for that. I'm sorry to all the parents out there that have to listen to this. You might just want to plug your kids' ears for the next 5 seconds, or not 5 seconds, 5 minutes. It's going to get bad. Because I genuinely you look at it's been 40 years since the U.S. has won Olympic gold, and every single time I get it. The NHL hasn't been since 2014 when Oshie beat Bob in the shootout in Sochi. Now, every single time we step out and put a team on the ice, we should be trying our absolute hardest to put the best product on the ice. I've mentioned this previously. I don't know why guys like Jason Robertson, who's one of the best goal scorers and one of the best players in the NHL right now, is not on Team USA. And I get they kind of just tried out the same team from the Four Nations. That didn't work. We didn't win. It's like Dallas every year. What makes you think that putting the same product on the field year in and year out is going to win you something? It's not like these guys need more experience. They have it. A lot of these guys are in their prime to just coming out of it. But there's no reason that we should have a guy who's never won anything, never really been able to get out of the first round, try to lead this team to something that the U.S. hasn't been able to do since 1980 when we pulled off the biggest upset in the history of sports.
So, question for you now. The alternate captains were McAvoy and Matthew Tkachuk. How do you feel about those? Matthews won a lot.
Kachuk was a good pick. And see, here's my other thing is like, I don't know
McAvoy, I believe, has won a cup too.
He has. I think he won it with Boston.
Well, yeah, he's still with Boston. But so McAvoy's won something. Chuck's won something. I believe McAvoy's an alternate with Boston. Believe Matthew Tkachuk is too. I don't think, off the top of my head, I don't think there's many captains on that team because most of them, like for Florida, it's Barkov, but for Boston, I forget who it is for Boston. I don't think they have a captain right now. Actually, I don't think they do. I think they're running all alternates. Uh, for Toronto, I forget who their captain is. It might be Austin Matthews, if I'm not mistaken. But and then you move to Canada. Their captain is Sidney Crosby, which was the obvious choice. And then their alternates were McDavid and Makar. I thought McKinnon should have gotten it over Makar, but I understand also the idea of putting a alternate on the defensive side, on the blue line as well.
I will say that's a very standard practice.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I thought Nathan McKinnon would have been, like, realistically, it's going to be McDavid next time out, and then McKinnon and whoever else, probably Makar. I also think Zach Werenski should have gotten it for Team USA. Werenski, in my opinion, Werenski's been the best defenseman in the league this year. And he should win the Norris, in my opinion. If I had to give the Norris out right now, it would be Werenski. I believe he's Columbus's captain. And I'm kind of surprised he didn't get picked for any of this. At least over McAvoy. But they also, like, their line pairings, I don't know what it was today. I didn't watch the game. But, like, the projected lines had Werenski on the third pairing, which was a shock to me because Werenski is I think they had him, it was second or third, but he's the best defenseman in the league to me. Like, between both sides of the puck, I think he's got almost 20 goals as a defenseman. Like, and that is the biggest snub to me when it comes to captains. I didn't really see any other of the captains. They didn't really make big news. But yeah. Yeah, I think Werenski was the snub. Moving on, we'll get your thoughts on this real quick. Slovakia upset Finland 4-1 yesterday. On Wednesday, Slavkovsky, sorry. What a performance. 2 goals and an assist. Almost had a hat trick with the empty netter. Just didn't have a stick. But he got an assist on that goal. What a performance from him. Palavj? Not 100% sure how to pronounce that. The non-NHLer had a 38 save out of 39 shots performance against Finland. Finland kind of
Isn't
carried
he
the
an
play in that game.
ECHLer?
I don't think he plays in the U.S.
I think
The former
someone
ECHLer was the Italian goalie, and then he went over to back east to Europe to play. It was I think something Clara. That was the Italian goalie's last name. But I will ask, do you think this is a cause for concern
no.
for the?
He is the ECHL goalie for the Iowa Heartlanders. Played
Oh, I didn't.
18 games in the AHL last year. Has played 1 game in the ECHL this year.
Interesting. I will say for the Olympics, a lot of guys are going to get jobs off of this, 100%. But do you think there's cause for concern for Finland? They on Friday, I think that game will be played before this episode is released. But do you think there's cause for concern with Finland, especially going into playing Sweden tomorrow for us on Friday?
Yes. And I think the big thing you have to watch out for here is you got beat in your opener. You lose again, you're gonna have a hard time fighting your way back into getting out of the group stage. And so I think one of the big things you have to watch out for is trying to come out and be over aggressive and end up getting beat and giving up 2-3 goals early in that first period and not being able to claw your way back in. I mean, we've
So
seen it countless times before where a team goes and they play way too aggressive early, either burn themselves out or they'll just get beat on a quick breakout and all of a sudden scores 2-0 5 minutes in the game.
I don't. Obviously, the game against Sweden will tell us a lot about both these teams, considering Sweden did struggle with Italy for 2 periods yesterday. But I do. I don't think there's a huge cause for concern. Obviously, the two big favorites in this tournament are the U.S. and Sweden. I think, or the U.S. and Canada. I think far and away. I just don't think. I think the talent gap is very big when it comes to that, and I think it's a little bit different when you don't live in your home country regularly. It's obviously a huge honor, but I think it's just different, especially with the big rivalry being there between the U.S. and Canada. So I don't think there's a huge cause for concern considering Finland carried play for the most part in that game. So I'm not super worried about it. I think Finland will get to the quarters, I believe is what they are. But the stakes have definitely been risen for that game against Sweden on Friday. Canada dominates today in a 5-0 win. You talked all that trash about Jordan Binnington. He had a 26 save shutout. 3 points for McDavid. I believe another 2 for Crosby and a couple of the other. We knew this going into the tournament. Canada has an obvious embarrassment of riches in this tournament. The scoring was obviously there. I think they had 50-something shots. I think it was 59 shots. So just kind of an obvious embarrassment of riches for Canada. Any thoughts, Briggs?
I'm going to get back to you on that Jordan Binnington comment after they play a competent offense or a more high-powered, potent offense. We'll see how well he holds up.
Or they play Czechia today? I don't have
Yeah,
that on me.
I
Look,
believe that's. I
here's
have it pulled. It was either, yeah, I think it was
here's
Czechia because I think the Swiss played the French.
here's
Sweet.
my thing. We'll get to the U.S. game as well. The U.S. beat Latvia 5-1, and the defense was really strong for the U.S. today. They only gave up 18 shots against. Obviously, Hellbuck gave up a goal. Didn't see the highlights. Didn't watch the game. Get back to you on that. But it, I do think the way that these two teams were constructed, it kind of very early yet. We'll see as it comes forward, but the defense for Canada is much more lackluster than I think the US's is. I think it's a more offensive team for Canada, which means they're going to give up a high shot volume, but they're also going to triple you in shots almost. So I do think it's going to be similar to the Four Nations last year, but I do think that is something to keep note of. Although the U.S. did give up a goal, Canada did not. Other takeaways for the U.S. and Latvia, the Tkachuk and Hughes brothers all have good days. Brady had a goal, and I believe the other three, Matthew and the two Hughes brothers, had 2 points. And power play was 2 of 4 for the U.S. So I do give them credit on that. I already know what you're typing. Any other thoughts on the Olympics?
I will say the worst thing about it, and I don't know if we've mentioned this yet, but the gold medal game being at like 5 a.m. on a Saturday. is the timelines for these. Like I was in class taking an exam when the first two periods of the USA game was going on. So extremely inconvenient with it being in Europe and a majority of those who want to watch the Americans play being at work, at school. So
That's the only thing that really hurts about these Olympics. Moving on, Illinois drops 2 straight, which kind of they lose 85-82 in Michigan State in overtime, lose 92-90 to Wisconsin in overtime. It's a huge win for Wisconsin, and now will take them out of pretty much 1 seed contention. Before last weekend, they were in 1 seed contention. 2 really heartbreaking losses. Keaton Wagler, I think, can turn this team on at any time. I think this team this team does have the construction to go to a Final Four, but I think it does hurt not being able to at least contend for a 1 seed. Briggs.
I'll be completely honest. I haven't watched a lick of Big Ten basketball. I haven't watched a lick of basketball, period. Not a big basketball fan, as those of you might realize, but
College hoops has been good this year. We will move to another Olympics update. Italy surges into the lead versus the last time we talked about it. They have 17 total medals, 6 golds. Norway is in second with 14 total and 7 golds. The U.S. right behind at 14 total and 4 golds. Moving into that, are the judges a little biased? So you have 2 Americans that came in kind of pretty heavily favored. Reigning world champs, the Madison Chalk Evan Bates duo has been world champs for a little bit, and they dominated in the team event. They did really well in the team event. And then a little bit of shaky stuff happens in the team event where they somehow take silver, even though they're pretty heavily favored, and it seemed like they had a flawless performance from everything I've seen. And Chloe Kim kind of had a similar thing happen to her. I think it's a little bit different on that one, but there are a lot of people like very angry about this. So I think it's crazy that we're even concerned about this. And obviously judges are going to be biased, but like that French judge in the team event, the team figure skating, you can't make it that obvious. Your biases that obvious, where you have the biggest margin by far in the point scoring versus anyone else. So you can't make it that obvious. So it's honestly sad that it sucks that we have to rely on judges for this. And I do think it's very suspicious that the moment the U.S. surges to getting close to running the medal table or winning the medal table, that stuff starts getting scored a little bit weird, especially with 2 world champions that have been reigning. And now they somehow just get silver to a team that has not won a lot, so to speak, or a snowboarder that has not won a lot, Briggs.
I think one of the big things we've seen over the course of this Olympics, and I know you and I have talked about this at length privately, but I feel like it's been very politicized. We saw the skeleton runner. I don't know if that's the right word for it. The skeleton Olympian from Ukraine be banned from these Olympics for his helmet. Say what you want to say about that.
Countries getting banned.
But reporters asking very charged questions. It's like these are athletes. They're not politicians. I get that they have a platform to be able to speak on things, but in a time where these sports are meant to bring everyone together and celebrate the unity that sports provides, this is, I feel like, done somewhat the opposite and has caused, um, I don't want to say divisive because it, it hasn't been super divisive, but it's just there's been moments where it's like, what? Where you had the um, reporters asking the U.S. Olympians if they supported what was going on back in the U.S. And it's like they're at the Olympics. Ask them about literally whatever you want pertaining to the sport. Why does it have to be something about what's going on back home?
Well, specifically them being charged as, how do you feel about supporting your country what amidst all the other things going on? Like, shut the hell up. You the problem is you have these journalists that wanted to be political actors, but they weren't good enough to make it. So they go and trash on sports and try to make athletes political actors. Shut up. I don't care about a athlete's politics. I don't. But we want to ask athletes on politics that they know nothing about. That's like asking why are we that's like asking a politician about sports. It's like he doesn't know anything. He knows a little bit about it because he probably watches it, but he doesn't know. Like, ask Ilhan Omar on the game. So, I just the political chargedness. I really don't. I don't like the being politically charged. It's dumb, and yeah,
For
I'm
for
just done
those
with that.
for those of you at home who haven't seen it, there was and I think the big one, I think the most blatant. I mean, you can say what you want about snowboarding. There's a lot of behind the scenes criteria there, but they say, oh, here's that. That one's not as clear, black and white. But the figure skating, where it was like you had a French judge score the French 10 points, I think it was 10 and some change, or it was right below 11 points above the second place Americans, where there was nowhere near that gap anywhere else on the scorecard. And I think one of the big things is we're seeing a lot of these biases come out, and it needs to be to the point, or it needs in the Olympics, it should be to the point where the flag that someone wears on their chest or whatever, because I know figure skaters, they have their costumes,
So to
I
speak,
think
some
is,
of their
yeah.
outfits, whatever.
Um, they have this, so they're not necessarily wrapping the red, white, and blue there. Um, but it shouldn't be, oh, because these two are tied to an American, we're not going to give them a gold. I'm going to score them a little bit less so that my home country wins. Like, that's just unbelievable. And to the fact that, like, everyone, I mean, it's not even just Americans that are speaking out on this figure skating thing. It's gotten just people all over the figure skating world being like, hey, this is wrong because what they did was nearly perfect, and yet the score did not reflect it.
Yeah, it's crazy that we're in this state. And the Olympics have always been politicized, but I think it's really bad at the point we're at right now. And so it I hope it doesn't continue this way because I would love to see the US like at least come close because Norway's run the medal table for the what was it, the last three Olympics. So it would be nice to see the US at least be on the podium of the top three. They are right now, but it would be nice to see them compete. And granted, the silvers turning into gold like wouldn't change the medal count, which is what the medal table is ultimately decided by. But it would be a lot different if it would look better if the US had six golds. Because if the US grabs a couple more medals, they're tied with Italy. And well, they're technically a step down because Italy has six golds. Well, what would the US's how many golds would the US have right now if the two that we think should have gotten the gold would have gotten the gold. It's crazy. It would be 6. And obviously things change day to day. I think there's like 6 medals handed out a day. So obviously things consistently change. But it's still crazy to me that in the concrete stuff, like Jordan Stolz, who beat the Olympic record, the U.S. is winning those events. They took silver in curling. They were very close to winning. That's not a judged thing. That is a concrete thing. So, yeah, I think
Which
it's
I will
crazy.
say, shout out to the Americans in curling, because that is one of my favorite things to watch every 4 years. Because outside of the Olympics, I don't think I will ever see curling on the TV.
Mixed doubles teams, Corey Thies and forget his first name, but Dropkin, dude, like she's the
Electric.
first woman. She's the first woman to medal in curling for the U.S. I think ever. I could have that stat wrong, but like that's insane. Good for them, man. I mean, they had been doing well as a duo the last couple of years, but congrats to them. I mean, to give us Americans hope when it comes to curling, and just to barely lose to Sweden, which was electric. The Sweden duo was the first brother sister combo to win a mixed doubles curling event. Just awesome, dude. So I think it's been pretty cool to see, especially the U.S. getting better at sports that they haven't really been good at in previous Olympics. Moving on to best bets, I'll start with Dylan's and then I'll let you go, Briggs. Dylan is 13-11 on the year. He was 3-3 last weekend. He has a Chet Holmgren double-double. He sucks at putting the freaking dates on this. Austin Reeves, 3+ 3-pointers. Yusef Nurkic, over 8.5 points. Denny Avdija, don't know how to pronounce that, over 5.5 assists. Blazers money line against the Jazz and Lakers money line against the Mavs. Surprisingly, all NBA. And
That is our
we'll
resident
see.
basketball analyst. So
I know he has not watched a lick of NBA this year.
hey, let that man get his bread. All right. I went 2-4 last weekend. Rough weekend by my standards, but the two that I did hit, I think were both plus money.
I don't know if that puts you up.
Unit wise, we're doing good. So
Unit-wise, you're
this
probably
weekend,
about even.
feeling a lot more confident. I got the Swedes money line versus Finland on Friday, as well as Canada to cover -2.5 against Switzerland. Which, quick sidebar, I know I've said this to you a couple of times, but does anyone else love the fact their thing is sweet? Like the
You
little
keep
3-letter thing is like the
saying that.
Ronaldo.
You
I'm
keep
sorry,
saying that.
it, it, it just I giggle every
It's
time I
so
see it.
random.
So and then I got the Americans in Denmark over 6.5 on Saturday. Iowa State to cover 5.5 against Kansas at home. Florida, the Gators to cover 11.5 against Kentucky at home, and then Purdue to cover 1.5 at Iowa. That's all I've got.
Not bad, not bad. I am 15-9 on the year. Still had that one up on the monthly leaderboard. So 4-2 last week, which makes me 4-2 on the month. I, unlike you, do not feel confident about this at all. I will also take Canada -2.5. Celebrini anytime goal tomorrow, Friday morning. The U.S. and Italy women's game, I think it's on Friday, under 8.5. I don't know how I got that, but they're probably going to score 12 goals. Chris Goddard, top 10. I don't know if that's going to hit. You can probably tell me if it is or not. It was like
I will
minus
say
1. 50.
Real
He's
quick
super
before
hot.
he is super hot, but the weather there, I mean, they've been hitting drivers on like 160-yard par threes, just kind of toying around. But the Pebble Beach is always one of those fun places to play at because the weather plays such an important role. And like, it's not a course that you usually see, a style of course you usually see on tour. So very unique. I personally, I didn't put down as a best bet. I would be surprised if Siwoo Kim takes it home.
Wasn't
He,
he
he's
like
been
super close last week?
he's been like top 3 or 4 like 3 times I think so far this year.
It'll be interesting. I also have Michigan State money line. I believe that is a Friday game, and the Georgia Swarm money line against the Calgary Roughnecks in the NLL. I think I'm undefeated in NLL bets, so I'm gonna keep going to the well that has done me well, and just bet against the bad teams.
I mean, do you want to say well anymore? Well, I think that just about wrapped up the episode.
I Yeah, you lost me on that one. Anyway, thank you all so much for tuning in. If you made it this far, please like and subscribe. Let us know your thoughts. Are the Olympic judges rigged? But anyways, thank you for tuning in. Have an amazing weekend, and especially without football this weekend. First weekend without football in a while. So I think it's what 210 days without football.
Time to start banking your Flip XP to put down that magical $100 parlay week 0.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Don't
a
take
wild
gambling
season.
advice from me.
Yeah, you bet on South Carolina every week and then wonder why. I lost money.
I'm convinced that whatever team I bet on loses, so I'm going to fade South Carolina every week this year. Like I bet on Oklahoma City
Did you see
this
Brandon
Thursday
Miller
night.
put up 31 points the other night? If you don't know, Briggs had put in a Brandon Miller in a what was it, a 10-leg parlay, averaged
13
at 13-leg parlay, the only leg that didn't hit, and he had been averaging above what his total had been. He only mustered 2 points. So
through he had 2 points through 3.5 quarters,
he,
and then finished with 10, I think. And it was like half of what his prop
dude, he had a
was.
highlight reel play. He got like Air Brandon or something.
Very, very sensitive subject.
Brandon Miller's your all-time favorite player. You're a fan of his back at Alabama.
Didn't he like shoot someone?
He killed someone and got away with it. We're gonna get
Like,
sued. We cannot say that.
I mean,
We're gonna get sued.
if OJ can do it, so can he.
We're gonna get sued.
Yeah, we're
No.
definitely we got it. We probably should cut that. All right,
Anyways, thank you.
stop recording at this point.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great weekend and God bless.